Oh gosh, is that wonderful?
Tell us, what's so special about those two excerpts for
About
you?
those two excerpts. Well, first of all, the Bergman was not a stage production. It wasn't filmed in an opera house. It wasn't conceived as a stage production. It was conceived as a film. And so you can see the elements of working with a tremendous stage director with a passion for film. And the track was recorded ahead of time, so the singers actually sort of singing synchronized. Mm-hmm. And he was insistent upon sort of using singers who sort of looked like their parts. And of course, and that is one of the reasons I think that the film is so beautiful. But I also just like the idea that he understood movement, and he understood so well how to sort of use a camera on faces, and the whole idea of and you have to see the whole film. The way the magic flute sort of looks in this thing, it looks to me like you're looking through a beautiful impressionistic gauze and sort of seeing a film through that. And it is simply wonderful. This came out in sort of the mid-70s, did it not? And it was certainly, it was 79.
Oh, right.
But it was such a revelation as to how film could look on how opera could look on film, that I think it changed the way a lot of directors started to work on stage. I really do feel there was a lot of influence there. And of course, the Losey film, the Don Giovanni, was the first opera film that was filmed on location. I mean, this was filmed at the Palladio in Vicenza, Italy. And so all of it was filmed sort of the way you would make a feature film, instead of the way one would do an opera. And of course, Losey was incredible. I mean, the films that he made. And his approach to doing this was completely cinematic. And I think extremely successful, and it is wonderful. You must see that. You must see that production all the way through, because it is amazing. Just the way it begins. Apparently, the Palladios in sort of this period of time all had sort of factories or something we would call a factory, sort of attached to it, where workers actually sort of earned a living. And a lot of them had glass houses. And so he uses the glass house in the beginning of the film of this particular Palladio. And it is amazing to see that. You don't quite, when you see it at first, you don't quite understand what's going on. How does it look like this, until you realize it's inside of a building. He also uses that at the end of the film. And it is something extraordinary. And it was so amazing to see an opera that was absolutely the best cinematography you could imagine. It's really quite fantastic.
And, but also both films will use professional opera singers as actors.
Professional opera singers, exactly. Not sort of actors that are miming to the music. They're actually singers, which is, of course, extraordinary.
Yeah.
And that cast from Losey's film, my goodness.
Yeah. Do you think that's set a different bar than for acting on the operatic stage?
I think so. I think that directors, perhaps because of Bergman and perhaps a few other people as well as Losey, understood that opera singers could actually be taught to move and to express in ways that were perhaps not done previously. And I think that sometimes, in my opinion, it goes a bit too far, but I think that it is important that we can walk around and sing at the same time.
Well, I want to say, where do we go after you being 4 stories up
Yes,
the stage?
really. I say with my eyes closed until I came down again, I promise you.
I want to take a step further in this conversation now. Talk a little bit about the future of opera.
Yes.
Your causes, your activism.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2003, you started the Jessye Norman School for the Arts in your hometown of Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us about the school? What motivated you to start it?
Well, I was contacted by some friends of mine in Augusta, where I was born. And they were part of a foundation especially for children. And they said they wanted to do something that had to do with the arts and children. I said, well, then we need a school. And so we started planning this whole school, and would decide how it would work as we went along. That would be tuition free, that children would have to audition that we would not only have music, we would have all of the arts that we could afford at the time. And it has grown into something that makes my heart beat too fast just to think about it, because we are now in our 14th academic year. And the children really are golden. 15 of them will have the privilege of coming to Toronto this week. And this is for most of them, this will be the first time they've traveled outside the country, you can imagine, and to come to be a part of working with other children, the Setima children here, who are the same age. And we decided what age group we would work with. My mother had been a teacher, and she always said that if you get the juniors to understand in that period of time in their development their own worth, and this is children between 11 and 15, which we used to call juniors. I think we now call them middle school. And she always said that if you could get them to understand their own worth in that period of time, they would be saved as human beings, as people. They would develop in a good and productive way. Whereas if you don't instill that kind of understanding of self and that understanding of your own place in the world in a positive fashion, that this is something you go on fixing for the rest of your life. And so we are very proud at this school. Our mission is to develop full people, to develop kids that will grow up to be full, important, and supportive citizens of their communities where they live. We would love for them to be in the arts if they choose that as a profession, but that isn't the aim of the school. The aim of the photography classes and the dance classes and the individual instrumental classes and the choruses and the productions that they do at the end of each term, this is to teach them to work together with other people and to understand what they're able to contribute. I mean, they did, for instance, a production of The Wiz about 4 years ago, where not only did they build the sets, they built the costumes, and they did the music. I mean, it is simply a wonderful way for children to grow up and to grow into themselves and to understand that they have a place in this world and that they have a voice and that this can be expressed in a positive way.
That building full people resonates a lot with me.
Yes.
And I think we need more of that today.
We really do.
It reminds me of something that my mentor, Gérard Mortier, used to say. He always said there can't be democracy without the theater.
You can't, exactly. And we talk about a great deal, certainly in the United States, we talk about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we call this STEM. And I'm so happy to see that there are one or two politicians that have voices and the speaking out that has to be called STEAM. Because it has to include the arts. And that we should stop worrying about people in other countries that we think are sort of running ahead of us in mathematics and engineering and technology and so on. We don't understand that you can hardly walk down a street in India where somebody isn't dyeing something that they're going to sell to you as a beautiful scarf, or carving something that they're going to sell to you and show to you they could do this with just a knife and a piece of wood. That the arts are so a part of some countries and some communities that it isn't even called art, it's just called life. Mm-hmm. It's just called living. And if we could only understand that in our part of the world, we would be, I think, so much better off, and I think the whole world would be so much better off.
Wow. That's a profound statement right there. Right, that's all.
This would have been a great last word to this conversation, but I do have two more questions on here that I would like to get through. So we'll just have to try and keep it on this level.
Okay.
You obviously came of age in a segregated country.
Yes.
And you've gone on to fight, prejudice and discrimination throughout your career.
Yes.
Joined the civil rights movement. You performed at the Nelson Mandela Freedom Festival. Clearly, that's another cause that's very close to your heart. And
yes.
What kind of legacy would you hope that you can leave or inspire to the next generation?
My legacy?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
We're getting to the big questions.
We're getting to the big questions. I hope that I would inspire people artists, musicians, whatever, to step beyond ourselves, to step beyond our professions, and to make sure that we're a part of the communities in which we live, and that we're supportive of people that need support, and that we understand that that is a duty. Somebody said, that's the price you pay for being a human being, that you're concerned about the welfare of other people, and that this should be something that is a part of your own thinking, and not something that you'll do when you get around to it, or that you'll think about it when you've got time. That we have, certainly in the United States, there are so many people that are homeless and are in need of all kinds of social support that certain parts of the government feel are not necessary. And those of us that have a voice have to speak out against this close-fisted attitude towards people that need help. And I think that if I had any legacy at all, I would like to say that I cared and that it showed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did answer my final question with your previous answer, so
Okay.
that's beautiful. I think we have a little bit more time to open up the floor for audience questions. And I think there are a couple of volunteers in the room with microphones, so if you have a question and you want to make yourself known, we will get a microphone to you.